Lipid. Table of contents. Characteristic, triglyceride, phospholipid, steroid hormone. Finally, let's review. Characteristic of lipids. Lipids are made of C, H, and O. Carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Their main function is that they are energy source and has long-term energy form. They are insulator, which means electricity doesn't flow, and they also protect organs such as heart or liver. They create steroid hormones, which are known as sex hormones. And lastly, the most important thing is that they are not a polymer. Also, lipids are hydrophobic, which means they don't like water. Triglyceride. What do you think if you hear of triglyceride? Well, you can know that tri is 3, and you might be not aware of glyceride. Well, glyceride came from glycerol, so triglyceride has energy storage and is insulating. Also, their structure is 1 glycerol and 3 fatty acids. There are 3 types of them. First is saturated fatty acids, which means solid fats. Second is monounsaturated fatty acid. So mono means one and un means no, which means not solid one fat. These are common vegetable oils, like these. And finally, there's polyunsaturated fatty acid. Poly means many, un means no, and saturated means solid, which means no solid but many fats, and they're commonly found in fish oils. Triglyceride has another nickname called fat, a fat that we know. Now this is the structure of triglycerides. As you can see, here's glycerol, and there's one fatty acid. There's H and HO combined, so they make water. But aren't you familiar with this? Yes, we've seen this in our previous videos that it is dehydration reaction, which means combining a polymer and making and water is made in this process. Now there are 1, 2, and 3 fatty acids with only one glycerol. Now triglyceride, as you can see in the name, tri came from 3 and glyceride came from glycerol. There are 2 types of fats, saturated and unsaturated. Saturated is solid, while unsaturated is usually liquid. This is the normal structure of fats, and only the distinction between saturated and unsaturated is C to C bonds. As you can see, here's just a single C-C bonds, while in here, there's double bonds. So in unsaturated fats, even though there are 3 of them and they're 2 saturated, but if one of them is unsaturated, that means it is the entire triglyceride is unsaturated. The example of saturated fats in our life are butter, cheese, and chips, while in unsaturated fats, there are olive oil and fish oil. As you can see here, these are usually solid, while these oils or drinks are liquid. Phospholipid. Haven't you heard of phospho? Yes, you might have heard this because The element called P is phosphate. Also, there's lipid, which is our unit, and it is a major component of cell membrane. You can distinguish a cell membrane as a protection for cells, and the the structure of this is hydrophilic head and hydrophobic tails. We usually call this amphipathic. They have different types. Finally, there's phospholipid bilayer. As you can see here, there's phosphate, and this is head, which is hydrophilic, and these are the two tails, which are hydrophobic. This is one phospholipid, but there's how many layers are there? One and two. So that's why we call this as phospholipid bilayer, because phospholipid is this and bi means two. Layer is these layers. So this is two layers of phospholipid. There's two types of them. First, lipid bilayer, and second, micelles. Lipid bilayer is phospholipid bilayer that we just saw. These are the heads that are hydrophilic, and these are the tails that are hydrophobic. You can see that in both of them, heads are close to water and tails are farther from water. Now, this is the head and this is the tail. You can see the tails do not get along with the water, while heads are closely stuck to water. Finally, steroid hormone. It is also known as sex hormone. Cholesterol is a component of animal cells' plasma membrane. We're going to learn plasma membrane later, but just know that it is a component of animal cells. And cholesterol is precursor of steroid hormones. You might wonder, what is precursor? This is just an ingredient, so cholesterol and other things combined make steroid hormone. You might have heard of cholesterol a lot because they are easily found in our bodies. Now these yellow things are fats, and these in our body are called cholesterols. So this cholesterol blocks our blood from flowing rapidly and fluently. This is the structure of steroid hormone. Now there's three hexagons, but how are we going to memorize this structure? For me, I just thought of this as it kind of looks like a doghouse. You see how this doghouse is similar to this? Now, finally, let's review. What is phospholipid made of? Yes, it is made of hydrophilic heads and hydrophobic tails. What is cholesterol? It is a component of animal cells, plasma membrane, and precursor of steroid hormones. What are the differences between saturated fat and unsaturated fat? Saturated is single bonds and unsaturated is double bonds. Also, saturated is solid while unsaturated is liquid. We learned about lipids. First, it was made of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. It was also not a polymer, and it was an insulator. There was saturated and unsaturated. Now for saturated, there were solid and they had one C to C bonds, while for unsaturated, they were liquid and they had double bonds. We also learned about steroid hormones, which are also sex hormones. So for female, there's estrogen and progesterone, while for males, they were testosterone. There was also phospholipid. There was hydrophilic head and hydrophobic tail. There were two of them called bilayers. So these heads protect the tail because tail said, "Oh, I don't like water." Then as head likes water, it stays between the water and this tail. So the head is in between them. We also learned about triglycerides. One glycerol and three fatty acids. Now this is the very simple structure. This is glycerol and there were fatty acids. Triglyceride is also known as fats. They were combined by dehydration reaction that we learned before. For a recap, dehydration reaction was H and HO combined to make O H2O, which is water.